Big card coming up tonight. We got Michelle Waterson taking on Angela Hill in the main event. Ottman Azaitar taking on a tough out in Khama in the co-main event. Great main card, great undercard. And listen, one thing that you're not going to want to miss out on, it's ringsidebeerstore.com. Use a promo code FNP. You're going to save 25% off your order. That's for Fight Night Picks viewers only. They've got some awesome merch over there, some hats, some pretty cool shirts like I've got on today. I mean, they've got tap handles. I mean, MMA tap handle, ringside beer, looks pretty cool. They've got the boxing glove. It's awesome stuff, so make sure you check out ringsidebeerstore.com. You're helping out the show with Fight Night Picks, but they've also got some great stuff, so make sure you check them out. Use the promo code FNP. You're going to save 25% off your order today. Another great Canadian company, Stardom Sports, out of Ontario, open since 1988. Make sure you give them a look. I mean, they've got a massive summer blowout sale going on right now. It's the end of the golf season, but you can pick up some pretty good deals. I mean, a Nike Dry Fit Essential half-zip pullover, $44.99 Canadian, great deal. So make sure you give them a look at stardomsports.ca and check them out. Fight Night Picks is brought to you by Vertiball. Head on over to their website. It's vertiball.com. And listen, it's an awesome product. It's a local company out of New Brunswick, Canada. So make sure you support those guys locally as well as Fight Night Picks. But they're the only mountable portable muscle massager. They can stick onto any smooth surface. They've got an industrial strength suction cup. Can support over 100 pounds of pressure. You can get really into those deep knots. I have one here at home. I use it for my back and my shoulders from holding up that Fight Night Picks Pick'em trophy. But listen, make sure you check them out. It's a great product. Like I said, they're recommended by physiotherapists, masseuses, and chiropractors across Canada, the US, UK, and Australia. And they're used by countless professional athletes like Minka Fitzpatrick on screen there, as well as Clelin Ferrell of the Raiders. So if you head into the cart, make sure you check them out. So I've got a Vertiball massager in my cart right there. Use the promo code FNP. You're going to save 10% off your order. You're supporting this company here that I'm very passionate about in New Brunswick, Canada, and you're helping out us as well. So make sure you check them out, vertiball.com, promo code FNP, 10% off your order. And without further ado, let's get into it.
It's time
for 15 minutes of non-stop MMA, tackling the biggest news in the sport. Head into the chat and let us know how you feel. Live from Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada, here's your host, Craig Allen.
Oh boy, and we have a busy card coming up today. Craig Allen at Craig Allen FNP. I'm really looking forward to this one. I see Diego is excited about the card. We've also got, who else? Brandon Sanders in the chat. Who else do we have? 1D Ammo doesn't like the ads at the start. Hey, we got to pay the bill somehow, 1D Ammo. So come on. And we're having an insane time with Fight Night Picks. Now, is this pace sustainable? I really don't know, but 6-1 last weekend, 10-0 the card before. Who knows what's going to happen today? But listen, if you're not hanging out with Fight Night Picks, I don't know what you're doing. If you're not getting ready for the cards with us, what are you doing? Really, I mean, you got to get excited for these cards. These Fight Night cards. Listen, now, name value wise, this might not be the best one on the list. But hey, I'm really looking forward to it. Mr. Luxury's over here. We're up a couple $1,000,000 from last week. Holy smokes. You're getting ready for the Romanov card. Let's get into it. Danny D with the denim on denim. The Canadian tuxedo. And I'm yelling, but the reason why I've got it is because if you're following along with Fight Night Picks over on Instagram, if it's a good week, I post a picture with Aaron Rodgers. I put on the Tay-Bay song, the Canadian country artist, with denim on denim, and that's it. I mean, I'm excited about this one. I think there's a lot of really good fights here. Jerome likes the bolo tie. I like the denim jacket, but holy frig, is it ever hot. So I'm going to take this jacket off because this is the hottest jacket I've ever worn in my entire life. I'll probably never wear it again. Yoink, there goes the denim. But listen, still got the denim shirt. I'm really looking forward to this card. We'll put that away. Who knows what could happen here? I know a lot of people, I see Taylor saying, I've got Romanov, Green, and Rodriguez on your multi. I think that's a pretty good one. There's all sorts of fights that we can really talk about today. Tak Kwong, great work lately. Just my 2 cents. You're darn tootin'. I see you out there with the devil horns. Rock on. Young Coco's having fun. I'm really looking forward to this one. Like I said, Waterson and Hill in your main event. There's a lot of people going with Angela Hill, and I like that as well. I'm riding Angela Hill in this one, so I'll throw it out here pretty quick. But we're going to kind of switch it up. Because like I said, From the outset, the 6-1 and the 16-1 in the last 2 weeks. If you're following along, Fight Night picks over on Instagram. I'm going to be reading off those picks here today. So that's kind of going to be the point of the show here. We're going to whip through those. I'm going to offer some insight, and I want to see everybody filling up the chat. And like I said, the show just started. We're about 5 minutes in, and that chat is going to light it up. So I appreciate Mr. Luxury in the super chat. If you can hit it up too, I would appreciate that because it lets me wear denim on the weekend. So we'll put that away. We'll put this away, and we'll get into our first fight on the prelims. We got Sabine Mazzo taking on Justine Kish. If you look over on Instagram at Fight Night Picks, 97 picks or votes on Mazzo, 34 with Kish. That's good for 74% Mazzo. And I see a lot of people going with Sabine Mazzo. Matt went with Sabine Mazzo. DPS saying, is Matt taller than me? Yeah, he's quite a bit taller than me. He's probably like 3 inches taller than me, 2-3 inches. I'm 5'11". Matt's over that 6 foot mark. So there is that. Now, Sabine Mazzo, like I said, I see a lot of people going with her. Originally, I went with Justine Kish. Now, I'm going to whip it around and kind of, attack this from a lot of different angles because you saw Sabine Mazzo on the regional scene. It was the incredible kicks. It was a lot of push kicks, a lot of front kicks, a lot of use of her length, and she is one of the lengthier fighters in this division. It's just really interesting because if you look at it, she's 5'7", 5'5" for Justine Kish, so they're kind of close there. She has quite a bit of reach advantage. I don't put it up in the Fight Night Picks graphics when I do them up, but leg reach would definitely be to the advantage of Mazzo. I see, just my 2 cents, taking Mazzo with some trepidation. I see where you're coming from because if you look at the odds right now, Sabine Mazzo is a big favorite. Minus 275 is where she opened. She was at minus 250 on Friday. Now she's around minus 230. So there's late money coming in on Justine Kish. I know this is going to sound ridiculous and everybody's going with Sabine Mazzo. I see it over there. I'm going to go with Justine Kish, and here's why. And if I get it wrong, I say I don't care. I care because I care about that overall record. It's been insane lately. But I see a path to victory for Justine Kish because I know that she had that crazy knee injury. I know we made the Greg Oden jokes. It's a shame about that one. I mean, Greg Oden, so much promise. So much promise. But Justine Kish, she puts on a lot of pressure. She moves side to side quite well, where Sabine Mazzo is always, on the offensive. She moves more in a straight line. I used to play hockey with a guy, and once he got further and further up there, when you move on a straight line all the time, you're going to start to fail. Now, that was recreational hockey, and that guy used to play competitive hockey. But you can bring that into the overall MMA discussion because you see a lot of fighters where they just go, and at a certain point, that doesn't work anymore. You have to bring in some of that lateral movement. I like it from Kish. She's a very busy fighter, and I would expect her to almost try to take this one to the mat, but this should be a really fun fight, really interesting one to open up the night. And of course, we have an early card. That's why we're up here right now, starting at 4 p.m. Eastern. So I've got Kish here. Would not be surprised that Mazzo wins. I mean, like I said, she's over a 2-1 favorite, and that's kind of normally what happens. It's one of those fights where you would think maybe it's a setup fight for Mazzo. I can see a path for Kish. I like her where she's at in terms of odds, so I'm going with Justine Kish. Now we move into our next fight. This one is a good one. Of course, if you checked it out over on the video that we made, you look at it, and Bryan Barberena coming back from back surgery. Oh boy, I know I threw in the Mike Tyson. I broke my back. My back is broken. Spinal. And I'm actually a huge Mike Tyson fan, just as an aside. I've got the book with Customato, looking back at that whole history. I do listen to Hotboxing, and he was great on the Joe Rogan podcast, last Friday, I think it was. So that's just an aside, a personal Craig thing. But Bryan Barberena coming back. He's been off for over a year. Anthony Ivey, we saw him earlier on this year. He was taking on Christian Aguilera. He was supposed to be taking on Gerald Mearshart on short notice. Hamzat Chimaev, where you at, buddy? But Anthony Ivey, really good if he gets on top and he gets the fighter down. Bryan Barberena is always a tough out. And like I said, Bam Barberena, I mean, he's got dynamite in his hands, and he's taken on some of the best fighters that this division has to offer. And 170 right now is absolutely stacked. I mean, it's hard to pick a division that isn't absolutely stacked. But for Bryan Barberena, Colby Covington, Leon Edwards, Chad Laprise, he has wins over Warley Alves and Sage Northcutt. Warley Alves fought Colby Covington at one point. Jake Ellenberger, he had a competitive fight with Vicente Luque. I know he lost and he got finished in the third round, but that was a back and forth fight. If you forget it, that was a fun one. And then he lost to Rude Boy Randy Brown. And I know Rude Boy just fought Vicente Luque. I always say Vicente. But yeah, if we get 100% Brian Barberena and he puts it on Anthony Ivey, there's a good chance on the feet he gets a win. If Ivey waits until the third round, maybe there's an opportunity for Anthony Ivey. If you look over at the picks on Instagram, at Fight Night Picks, you've got 101 for Barberena, you got 40 for Anthony Ivey. That's good for 72% on Brian Barberena. If we look at the odds over in Best Fight Odds in terms of an average, Brian Barberena opened as a minus 225, got all the way down to a minus 265 during the week, and he's currently sitting at a minus 246 average. So it is what it is. Now, 1D Ammo has a really good point, and I know you got mad about my ads at the start. Maybe you're not going to check out Stardom Sports. Maybe you're not going to check out the Vertiball. Listen, it's a Canadian company. I actually have one. I have to roll it out, like I say in the ad, because I'm holding this Pick'em trophy, and Matt's never going to catch up, never in his wildest dreams. But yeah, you make a good point. We should see a better Anthony Ivey here. I would think so. Matt and I both picked Anthony Ivey to beat Christian Aguilera under normal circumstances, and it just didn't happen whatsoever. So boom goes the dynamite, and we look like idiots. But it happens. We're not savants. We're clairvoyants. We're just predictors. But yeah, I've got Brian Barberena here. Should be able to get the win, and it should be a good fight. And another good shot for Anthony Ivey as the chat continues to fill up. Now, our next fight, there's a lot of action on this one. I see a lot of people talking about it in the comments on YouTube. We dropped these videos a couple of nights ago. We dropped this one and then the video for our next fight that's coming up. So Brock Weaver, Jaylen Turner, I mean, fill it up. Let me know what you're thinking here, because it seems like the overwhelming majority is going with Jaylen Turner. 117 votes on Instagram for Turner versus 28 for Weaver. That's good for 81% on Jaylen Turner. And if we look over at the odds, again, this is one of those ones where it's on short notice. Frank Camacho's out. We're all excited for his fight. I know what happened against Justin James in his last fight, but Jaylen Turner opened as a minus 450. There was a lot of quick money, like really quick money on Brock Weaver. So Turner went from 450 to 265. He's now at minus 407, and there's money coming in on him today. It continues to go on Turner. We got the DraftKings play on Turner from Steven. Let's see. Brandon Sanders saying Turner is a beast. This is going to be a fight. The Visionaire saying inside distance. Aaron going with Turner. I'm going with Turner as well. And I had to kind of defend myself a little bit in this prediction video because we had Moises beating Turner. We had Camacho beating Weaver. But it's always interesting to see what's going to happen because styles make fights. And this is one of those versions. Tristan saying interesting choice of tie. And not sure if that's country version of a bow tie. It's a bolo tie. You know why, Tristan? Because we're 16-1 in the last 2 weeks, and it's absolutely insane. So yeah, if you follow along on Instagram, I normally post the Aaron Rodgers post if we have a winning record. And the last 2 weeks, it's been a winning record. So that's where that comes from. Now, Brock Weaver, Jaylen Turner, like I said, Jaylen Turner, if it goes to the mat, definitely has an advantage. Brock Weaver, you give him that brawler status, but you don't normally see a ton of power from him. Kazula Vargas really kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Overwhelmed him, which was an issue in that first fight. In the second, so he gets the win there, disqualification due to the knee. And then in his second time out, he gets finished by Roosevelt Roberts, who's also on this card. Thanks, Kevin Kroom. You're the best. And we'll talk about that one coming up. But Brock Weaver, we just haven't really seen it. I know there was a comment under the video that we had posted where, yeah, I mean, Brock Weaver, could he go back to what he did in his Dana White Contender Series fight and just, you know, put on a pace, get on his bike, and just ride out a nice decision win? He could, but Jaylen Turner is one of those guys that uses his length quite well. There's a lot of power on the end of his shots. And again, if he gets it into the clinch, there's Jaylen Turner. If Turner gets it to the ground, it's all Jaylen Turner. So I'm going with Jaylen Turner here. Like I said, overwhelming majority over on Instagram going with Jaylen Turner, and we'll move on to our next fight. I'm looking forward to this one. Listen, I want to know what everybody's thinking about this fight in the comments. We've got Roque Martinez taking on Alexander Romanov. Now, is there an E at the end of his name? On Instagram, there's not. On the UFC's website, there's not. In this, there is not. But I made an alternate one where I put an E because that's what most people are searching for. And I'm an absolute terrible person. But Alexander Romanov taking on Roque Martinez. So for Romanov, when he was going to be taking on Marcus Rogerio de Lima, I was the unpopular guy that took, I was going to say Romanov, that took de Lima to beat Romanov. It is what it is. Now, branch above, you said a curse, and YouTube wouldn't let me show it, but I can kind of read between the lines. So, you know, there's a few people that don't really like what Roque Martinez looked like at weigh-ins, but if you've watched Roque Martinez fights, he looks like that all the time. So I mean, listen, we've got Usman that's saying just terrible things. David saying Mark Hunt fighting tonight, had no idea. So David, I just want to shout you out for a second, because when Matt and I were doing the prediction video up, I said, you know, behind closed doors, hey Matt, who does Roque Martinez remind you of? And Matt goes, without a beat, Javi Ayala. Well, yeah, he does look like Javi Ayala, but I kind of thought he looked like Mark Hunt too, because Roque Martinez, he'll throw a bit of a calf kick. He throws that long left hook when he's kind of running in there. And Roque Martinez, there's definitely a shot that he wins this one. I mean, if you watch him, and I see Sean McMinn, first time in the chat, let's get it going. I appreciate you. But again, yeah, Roque Martinez, he can pick guys up. He can throw them. The one thing that people, you know, they're saying, oh, well, physique-wise, he looks terrible. His cardio is actually quite good, and I know he's coming in on short notice, but this should be a really fun fight. Now, the other thing, I got to go after DPS. I'm sorry. I have to. But your comment there, a guy who's 5'8", he's not quite 5'8", but beating an undefeated fighter with 100% finish rate. Go back and watch some of his fights, because Alexander Romanov's fought tomato cans in the past. His last fight, and again, I'm going back to the old prediction videos and a little bit from my memory here, because I don't have notes in front of me, but Alexander Romanov's last guy that he fought was what? Into his 40s and hadn't fought in a long time? He's fought some bad opponents. However, Alexander Romanov, with the wrestling, the sumo, the sambo, whatever you want to call it, or whatever part of his offense that you like, I think that's really going to wear on Martinez. If he can bring him down to the mat, it should be an interesting one. Would I be surprised if Roque Martinez steps in there and gets that knockout blow? No, I wouldn't. Would I be surprised if Roque Martinez gets a decision win? I would not, but the odds are heavily stacked against him. Alexander Romanov opened as a minus 400. Money came in on Martinez to a point on Friday where he's a minus 280, and now Romanov is sitting at a minus 415 with a little bit of late money coming in on Martinez. But yeah, I'm sticking with Romanov. So if you look over on Instagram for the picks, 130 voters going with Romanov, 14 going with Martinez. That's good for 90% for Romanov. It seems like everybody's going with Romanov. The Visionaire going with Romanov. Counterpunch, Roque Martinez by Jean Malante choke. Manasseh Remy, I'm sorry. Got to go Romanov. Anthony Morrow, Romanov forearm choke. Sawson 21 sumo. No, look up Alexander Romanov. There's a little bit of sumo info out there on him. And McEon is saying Roque has the hands, don't get me wrong, but Romanov has a takedown, so I'm going with him. Yeah, a lot of people going Romanov. I'm going Romanov, and we continue on because we've got a lot of really good fights, and this is one of those ones on short notice. The hard-hitting hillbilly, Kevin Croom, stepping in for Matt Frevola on incredibly short notice, taking on the Predator, Roosevelt Roberts. Now, if we go and look at this from a lot of different angles, which we like to do at Fight Night Picks, the fact that we both had Matt Frevola beating Roosevelt Roberts. And it's one of those ones where I know Roberts has lost a few here recently, but he's still a really good prospect. It's just, we talk about it all the time. Styles make fights. We said it once here today. And that's one of those ones where I thought, you know, Frevola with the takedowns, with the wrestling, he could control Roberts. Roberts does have good jiu-jitsu, and he's got great striking, but there was a good shot that Frevola was going to get the win there. Now, Frevola out of this fight. Now you've got Kevin Croom. What can I tell you about Kevin Croom other than the fact that I've watched a lot of Kevin Croom fights this afternoon, which is something that I never thought I would say. Oh, wait, I did, because he was going to be taking on Alex Caceres when Giga Chikadze pulled out of their fight a couple weeks ago. It was rumored Croom was going to be the guy coming in. I write on paper. I wrote up paper notes. Had Matt come over. We were getting excited. I did up a graphic. And then Croom's out. All of a sudden, Austin Springer's in. Now I lose my notes, and I need those. So Kevin Croom, he just waits and waits and waits. And I see over in the comments, Brandon Sanders saying, be careful with Kroom. He trains with Grant Dawson all day. He does. He trains out of Glory Fitness and MMA. And if you've never heard that gym before, ask Laura Sanko about it. And Dana White's Contender Series. And now I go all the way down there. So that is where Kevin Kroom trains out of. And there's other good fighters there too. Like, the James Krauses, the Zach Cummins, the Grant Dawsons. We've had a lot of fighters coming from Glory Fitness and MMA recently. But if you watch the Kevin Kroom fight, they're fun. They're always fun because he throws a lot of low kicks. He throws a lot of volume. He's got a little bit of power. He's got decent wrestling. He gets in behind. He'll go for the choke. And out of his wins, I mean, he's got 21 wins, which is crazy, to 12 losses, which is insane. It's just a lot of fights for a guy that's, fought on the regional scene. 10 of them by submission, 10 of those wins. And then the other thing, 6 wins by knockout or TKO for Kevin Kroom. He's got wins over Derek Minner, who we've seen in the UFC, who had a bit of a budding rivalry with Grant Dawson. He has a win over Adil Benjelani over in Bellator, and that was somewhat recently, as well as Charles Felony Bennett. And everybody loves Felony Bennett, right? But you look at the losses. John Makapa or John Teixeira in Bellator, quite good. Matt Bissett, who was in the UFC at one point. And last but not least, and again, not last but not least, because here's 3 names out of 12, he fought Justin Gaethje in Justin Gaethje's pro MMA debut and lost by first round slam. So that's what happened when Kevin Kroom fought Justin Gaethje. Now, it was 9 years ago. It wasn't, any time. It wasn't in the last month. It wasn't anywhere near the top. But Kevin Kroom had that fight and he lost that fight. It has no relevance to this. It's just a fun one for me to say. If you look at it again, I mean, he's one of those guys, nice low kicks. He's got decent boxing. He leaves himself exposed to a lot of shots. He makes some mistakes when he's on the feet. And that's one of those things. I think Roberts is, Kroom might have a little bit better wrestling. But, Roberts, submission abilities, the power on the end of his shots. He fights long. He knows how to fight long. He made that mistake against Jim Miller, but Jim Miller is an all-timer and a ledge at 55. The guy's still doing it with Lyme disease. So it's an interesting fight, but again, I'm going to go with Roberts. If we look over on the Fight Night Picks Instagrams, 120 votes for Roberts, 12 for, well, now it's up to 125 for Roberts, 12 for Kroom. Good for 91% for Roosevelt Roberts. Seems like everybody is going with Roberts over in the chat. I see a few with Kroom. KMC 50, Roberts with a dominant win. Let's see. Quell going Rob for the dub. Timo is saying, Craig, you look good today. Little denim on denim. Little denim on denim. And that's why. Now, again, you got to check out Fight Night Picks on Instagram to vote. And this is actually getting really hot. If you can see, my face is getting progressively warm because I'm wearing this shirt and it's tied right up around my neck. And I've got the bolo tie on. Trevor Hart, props to him for still fighting though. What a beast. 100%. We're going with Roosevelt Roberts. Let's look at the odds really quick. And Roberts is a pretty big favorite. Open is a minus 375. A whole bunch of late money came in this morning on... holy smokes, on Kevin Kroom. So the line went all the way down to minus 442, then up to minus 204, and now back way down, minus 460 thereabouts for Roosevelt Roberts. Carlos Torres with the super chat. I appreciate you with the $10. Won my first parlay last weekend. I owe you guys. Keep up the great work. I appreciate you, Carlos Torres, and everybody for hanging out. And we've got the Canadian in the Canadian tuxedo. I had to take the jacket off because if the shirt's warm, the jacket would add an extra 2 or 3 degrees Celsius. Because again, I'm Canadian. Like Lorthos is saying, not worth minus 460. Now, people hit me up on Instagram. I'm not going to offer you a lot of parlay advice, but I would say on this card as a whole, there's not a lot of fights that I would touch because there's so many fights where the odds are just absolutely insane. And if one of these big underdogs, cashes, I'm sure I'm going to get absolutely obliterated in the comments. The Visionaire asks, where in Canada are you from? New Brunswick, Canada, over on the East Coast. No, it's water off a duck's back if one of these big underdogs hits. But personally, I wouldn't touch a lot of these fights. So take that with a grain of salt. And we move along as we go into Julia Vela taking on Sajara Eubanks. Eubanks slated to fight last weekend against Karol Rosa. That fight out. Rosa out due to, a bad weight cut. Julia Vela steps in. Now, I thought the fight was going to take place last week. That's kind of the conversation that everybody was having. But it's this weekend. And it's a lot of fun because Julia Vela, on such short notice, you're talking about crazy odds. she hops in here and she's an overwhelming favorite. Open as a minus 300, got some money here and there and everywhere, and now she's sitting at a minus 293, which is the average over on best fight odds. So, big favorite. Awesome jiu-jitsu. Tetro Boomin, shout out from Vancouver, hanging out on the West Coast. Again, I'm over here on the East Coast. And the other thing, Ponda Replay saying lines are kind of steep, but a lot of fights are priced where they should be. It's one of those interesting ones, just like with Bellator. Bellator, you can snipe some good odds. And I know a lot of people are asking more and more for Bellator videos. Why don't you guys do them? We always used to do them. We did them hand in hand with UFC, but nobody watched them. So if you want Bellator videos, keep talking about it, and there's a chance we do them because we're both big Bellator fans. And overall, Bellator has a better main event tonight. Juan Archuleta and Patchy Mix is an awesome fight. And listen, from Maine, Ross Hilton is taking on a tough test there as well. So, the Visionaire, we got some Canadians in here. I see a lot of people from Barrie. Dustin Cronk is from Barrie, Ontario. DGDF DGSG is also from Barrie. We got a big Barrie contingent hitting us up from Ontario. Now, David Gonzalez, do you guys think that Eubanks' boxing is better? Well, we can bring those numbers up. I mean, she had so much success over on The Ultimate Fighter. She was obviously supposed to fight for the title against Nico Montano. I think that Sajara Eubanks probably would have won that fight. But again, the issue was couldn't make weight. Now, in terms of boxing, I mean, she lands more strikes per minute at 4.95 to 3.9 for Julia Vela. But the trouble is, takedown defense is good, and you're not really going to have to worry about that. Excuse me, because Eubanks is a very good wrestler. So it proves for a good fight. It's just, the trouble is, Sajara Eubanks, at 35, I mean, you're losing to Beck Rawlings. She just does this in the middle of her fights, like I'm going to do in this chat. She turns her back and then gets hit. You don't want to see that. You never want to have a loss to Rowdy Betch on your record. Now, in terms of this fight, yeah, I've got Julia Vela. If we look over on Instagram, now the votes keep going up because people keep checking it out, but 106 votes for Julia Vela to 34 for Sajara Eubanks, and again, 76% is what she's good for. Jerome says Julia related to Chris Avila. Chris Avila, oh boy, if you want to see a crazy career. Chris Avila with a negative win-to-loss record, and he is a big Diaz brother supporter. Now, let's move on to the next fight. Billy Quarantillo taking on Kyle Nelson. I mispronounced Billy's name, and, apologies to him. I kept saying Quarantillo, but it's Quarantillo taking on Kyle Nelson. Now, I know that a lot of people have been watching a lot of Kyle Nelson's interviews, and they've been pointing that out in the chat for this video. Now, I see Not a Robot saying, sorry about your Raptors. I'm a Celtics fan. Matt is actually a huge Raptors fan. We got the Toronto, Canada stuff going on. I'm a big Celtics guy. But in terms of this fight, Kyle Nelson, the Canadian, coming at us out of Stony Creek, trains with Diana Belbizia, who we've seen in the UFC, who lost her fight to Liana Jojo in her last time. But again, this is an interesting one because Billy Quarantillo, we saw what happened in his last fight where Spike Carlisle, the Alpha Ginger, absolutely blitzed him, won that first round overwhelmingly, and then it just kind of started to fall off a cliff. We talk about it, with Fight Night picks as the lithium battery effect. You've got a lot of people where they go, and then they just drop, whereas some people go all the way down, and then you have the opposite effect of some fighters. Guys like Kamaru Usman, and there's other fighters as well, where they just go up, and they're just the best. They're the best. Tristan saying Canadian supporting Boston over Toronto. That's rough. It is what it is, man. I mean, we're on the East Coast. Again, it's 6.5 hours for us to get to Boston. It's like a, 12-hour drive to get to Toronto. You can't always root for the Canadian teams. I got to say that. But again, Billy Quarantillo, Kyle Nelson. Let's focus on this one. David Gonzalez saying Kyle Nelson looks like he has some heavy hands because he's pumped his tires enough to get people excited about Kyle Nelson's heavy hands. And I see a lot of people talking about that. We look over at his record. I know he has that knockout win over Khama Worthy. A lot of people are excited about that one. A lot of people want to talk about that one. That was some time ago. It was over 3 years ago. Worthy down at 45. He was always complaining about the weight cut. I know James Lynch, fellow Canadian, had a good interview with him since then. And he's gone on a good run back up at 55, nice and rehydrated, doesn't have to worry about it. Now, with Kyle Nelson, lost to Diego Ferreira, that's going to happen. That's just like when Jaylen Turner fought Vicente Luque. It was too much. So for him to come in on short notice, fighting at home in Toronto, lose to Fea, you can't put too much stock into that. He loses to Matt Sales, and that's tough. And then he knocks out Polo Reyes. But Polo Reyes, a lot of people were knocking him out. So I have to shout out that super chat from Nige Abraham. Thank you guys for continuously creating great content. Just bleed. I'm sorry for that. But I do appreciate you. Now, again, it's an interesting fight. It really is. I just don't see it for Kyle Nelson in this one. I really like Billy Quarantillo. Both guys really sold a good fight. If we look over at the odds right now, again, it's one of those ones I would stay away from. So keep that in mind. But Billy Quarantillo opened as minus 300, went all the way up to all the way down, I should say, to about a minus 200. And then the money came in late again on Quarantillo, sitting at an average of a minus 273. Graham McPhee's hanging out. Graham, how's it going? Got to support those Vegas Golden Knights. Man, we're getting close. We're almost to the end of the road, and hopefully the Golden Knights can hoist that cup. Gotta ram some of that Red Bull. And if anybody knows an energy drink sponsor, I would love to get in touch with you, because holy smokes, you got to get ready for these shows with those. But like I said, I've got Quarantillo in this one against Kyle Nelson. The votes overwhelmingly for Quarantillo, 128 over on Instagram for Quarantillo versus 12 for Kyle Nelson. So we move along. We have Bobby Green taking on Alan Patrick. Where have you been, Alan? We haven't seen you in a long time. He's one of those guys, I don't put him in the same category as I would like Leonardo Santos, who I always wanted to see fight, or Claudio Silva. But those guys, I just wish they would fight more. It's like they go away for so long. They're a little long in the tooth, like Alan Patrick is here. I mean, 37 years old. He's been off for quite some time. He's fought some good competition in the UFC. I know Matt really, I got to pump his tires, because he pointed out a really nice fact that Alan Patrick, just in his stance, reminded us a lot of Alex Oliveira. He can do a lot of crazy things on the feet. He's great with his jiu-jitsu. And Bobby Green, really technical boxer, really good defensive wrestling. If he needs to take control of a fight, he can. And you saw that in his fight with Groovy Lando Venata the last time out. Bobby Green in his last two fights has just gone way up, and he's looked absolutely amazing. And that's what made me pick Bobby Green here. Now, again, if you look at Alan Patrick's last loss to Scott Holtzman, we went back and watched that. We watched the Hadzovich fight. But again, that was 2.5 years ago, and it was 2 years ago since he fought Scott Holtzman. So you can't put too much stock into that. But yeah, I mean, Bobby Green, where he's looked great, maybe he just doesn't show up in this fight. And that's happened. I mean, he's been an inconsistent fighter before. But again, if you look over at the odds, Bobby Green, an overwhelming favorite, opened as a minus 185. That line dropped 100 points, and Bobby Green now sitting at a minus 285. So a lot of money in on Bobby Green. It's, again, one of those fights that I wouldn't touch for that reason, because the line just continues to drop on one fighter. But you probably missed your shot. In terms of line movement, that's the one that's moved the most at about a 35% clip if you look over on best fight odds. But yeah, I've got Bobby Green here. I see Lorthos, the legend, says, I love Bobby Green, but he could lose this. Quell saying Alan has no striking ability to me. He's a very sketchy striker. He's very hard to try and get a good read off of. Let's see what else. Let's see. Politically incorrect individual says hope Green loses. Why? Why would you hope for that? And Kwame says, what's with the bolo tie? I'll tell you why, because we're 16-1, and if you're following along over on Instagram and we have a nice winning weekend, I post that Aaron Rodgers picture, and it's a little denim on denim. And the backstory to that was when the Green Bay Packers played, and it's happened twice because Matt Flynn did it as well. When they play in Winnipeg, like preseason games, they wear denim on denim with Canadian tuxedo. But again, I'm turning different shades of red because I continue to get warmer and warmer. So I took the jacket off. But yeah, I'm sticking with the bolo tie and the denim shirt, and I'm sticking with Bobby Green. And again, those votes over on Instagram, 119 for Bobby Green to 24 for Alan Patrick. So that's kind of the way that things are going there. Now, we move into a really interesting fight. You've got short fuse Ed Herman taking on Mike Rodriguez. Let me know over in the comments section what you're thinking here. Who are you going with? Because It seems like a lot of people are going with Mike Rodriguez. It seems like the odds are going that way. It also seems like the people on Instagram are as well. Sean McMinn hits us up on the super chat saying, watch your breakdowns every week as part of my betting research. Keep up the great work. I appreciate you, Sean. Anthony Morrow likes the Matt Flynn shout out. Matt Flynn, it just didn't work for him as a starter, but it is what it is. Ed Herman always puts on consistent performances. Mike Rodriguez hasn't been so in the UFC. Now, I understand. You watch Mike Rodriguez here recently taking on Marcin Prachnio, finished him very quickly. I got it. I know what happened. And I see Eddie saying, change your pick to Mike. No way, Jose, because I like the odds here. I mean, if you look at them over on Best Fight Odds, where I'm always looking at them, Mike Rodriguez opened as a minus 170, sharp money on him, then it stuck there. Somebody put in a big chunk of change early this morning. The line went from minus 241 to minus 166, back down to minus 241. And if you look at Ed Herman, he opened as a plus 145 underdog, now sitting at a plus 193. I still like Ed Herman. I know there's a lot of people going with Mike Rodriguez. Ed Herman, pressure. Ed Herman has jiu-jitsu. Ed Herman has wrestling. Ed Herman has a lot. Mike Rodriguez is younger. Hasn't had as many fights, so not as many miles on him. But the thing that I don't like is if you look at Mike Rodriguez, and it doesn't bode well for him moving along, is, again, Devin Clark loses a unanimous decision. That's going to happen. He beats Adam Milstead, who's no longer in the UFC. He has there's a D on it. If you look on his record on Tapology, there's a D, but really it's an NC, and I shouldn't keep saying there's a D. But for Mike Rodriguez, it's a no contest against John Allen, which he got beat quite badly in that fight. And then he comes back out. He loses by knockout to Daun Jung, who's on fire. And then he picks up a win over Marcin Prachnio, who had a huge long layoff and got finished in every single fight he had in the UFC. So I would stay maybe away from it, but also I've got Ed Herman big time. So David Robinson asking if I rip through my picks at the end. I will. Now we move on to the next fight. Andrea Lee, Roxanne Modafferi. The remix to Ignition. This one is a rematch. They fought in Invicta a number of years ago. Roxanne Modafferi picking up the win. Roxanne Modafferi fighting in that Ultimate Fighter finale that Sajara Eubanks was supposed to fight in, but it just didn't happen for her. She didn't pick up the win. Montano did. She beats decent fighters. She loses to decent fighters. She's that constant presence up at the top of the division. She has that crazy win over Macy Barber, and I'm sure people are going to hit us up in the comments about that one. Yes, I had Macy Barber. And yes, I had Maria Agapova to beat Shauna Dobson. It happens sometimes. But in this fight, I've got Andrea Lee in the rematch. Again, if you look at Andrea Lee's record, I mean, maybe there's not a lot of wins that just absolutely jump off the page at you. 11-4 total. She's lost her last two to Joanne Calderwood, who, again, Joanne Calderwood didn't look good in that Maya fight, but were there extenuating circumstances there? Calderwood also trains with Modafferi, so you'd think there's a good opportunity for Modafferi, A, in the rematch to get a win, and B, because she trains with Calderwood. And again, you look at the fight that Lee had against Lauren Murphy. A lot of people scored that fight for Lee. You look over at Roxanne Modafferi. She just lost to Lauren Murphy not that long ago. Counterpunch MMA says Modafferi is awful. That's an ignorant comment. You're not right. She's not awful. She's a ranked flyweight, and she's an absolute pioneer in MMA. I don't like that, and hopefully I wasn't too harsh on you. I apologize because, again, I'm wearing a good part of the Canadian tuxedo. I'm also wearing jeans, if you must know. Now, again, Ned Smith saying Modafferi is cool AF, not a great fighter. Run the Point says you look like the Walmart yodeling kid. I actually went to the Grand Ole Opry, and guess who was on that night? Kelly Pickler to end the night. Adam Doliak. It was his, what do they call it? Opry debut. I swear to you, Mason Ramsey was also on that, and I can't sing Love Sick Blues, but it is what it is. Now, again, Andrea Lee, I think the use of distance and the volume are really going to be what does her here. I think she's going to be able to get the win. I'm going to stick with the pick of Lee, and if we look over at the odds, it's again one of those fights that's very skewed, and I wouldn't touch this one because Andrea Lee opened as a minus 240. That line dropped super swiftly, and now she's sitting at a minus 312. 312. So she's a huge favorite. Jerome saying Roxy's such a lovable dork. If I could take a crown like that too, I would. Emilion is saying, what percentage chance you give Herman to finish Rodriguez in rounds 2 or 3? I'm just taking him to win on the money line. I'm not going for a finish like that. If John Allen couldn't get the finish, I don't know if Ed Herman can, but he's a good guy to go the distance. Subscribe now, boy. You're a dingus, and I'm just gonna kick you out of this. So see you later. And that's just the way that it is. So we continue on, and we look at our next fight. We've got Ottman Azaitar taking on Khama. Who isn't excited for this fight? Because Ottman Azaitar, undefeated, 12-0. We talked about his Muay Thai. We talked about his combinations in close. There's a lot of things that Ottman Azaitar does well. He's got the brother Abu Azaitar, who is lighting it up, and we'd like to see him back in the cage sometime soon. And for Khama on the opposite side, again, a lot of people are talking about the fact that Khama has all of these, losses, and he's been knocked out before. But man, look at the fights. They were at 145 pounds. He's a really big guy for 155. You saw it yesterday at the weigh-ins, how big of a guy he is. Ottman Azaitar, to me, is a smaller guy in this division. The thing that he did well in his last fight against, I want to say a tough out in the finish, Teemu Packalén, he got in close. He threw a lot of nice uppercuts. He mixed in some good combinations. But the jump in skill level from Packalén up to a Khama is huge. It really is. And if you watched any of Teemu Packalén's fights in the UFC, they did not go well. It's kind of like the Marcin Prachnio, I want to say hype train, but the bar is there, and they're down here, and a lot of people are up here, and I hope that's not too harsh. But again, Khama, he's looked great. The Devontae Smith fight, he looked great. The Luis Pena fight, he didn't look great until he got a good finish. Khama uses his length quite well. Again, we talk about power on the end of his shots. There's definitely that if it gets in close. Khama, for a longer fighter, is very good in close. I think he's got a good clinch as well. And if you talk about the wrestling, I think the ball is in Khama court. If we look over at the odds, this is one of those fights that, again, decent odds. I mean, Khama opened as a plus 105, and then the money just came in and continued to come in on Khama, sitting at a minus 130. If you look at Ottman Azaitar, opened as a minus 125, and he's all the way up to a plus 106 at this point. So with all that being said, maybe you're a big Ottman Azaitar guy. Maybe you think he's going to be able to get the win. I see over in the comments, Benjamin Peterson saying that Ottman has been training with Marco Madsen. Big J&Z Productions. This is why Worthy will win by KO. Too much hype over a finish of Packalén. And Michael Fletcher saying Khama's putting Pittsburgh on the map. I mean, listen, Pittsburgh, just Pennsylvania in general. The Philly boys, you get the two brothers, the Dacus brothers, picking up some big wins. The other thing, Danny D says Ottman hasn't fought in over a year. I usually go with a more active fighter. And Ryan is saying, TBH, I'm more excited for the undercard for this event. What do y'all think? I think too. Chrissy J saying, fire whoever's dressing you. Hey, Chrissy J, we keep winning, and it's an ode to our Instagram. So check out the Instagram. I can put the denim jacket on. I actually threw it, so I can't put it back on. But that's the whole reason, because it's 16-1 in the last 2 weeks. If you've been paying attention to question mark kicks, that could all burn in flames today. Who knows? I don't, but I'm putting in my best effort. So we look at our main event. Let me know who you're going with here. We got Michelle Waterson taking on Angela Hill. This is a great fight. I mean, Michelle Waterson, really good strikes straight up the middle. Angela Hill, and I saw the fight site, so shout to the fight site. They put out really good comments. But Angela Hill beating just a straight Thai fighter in Loma Lookboonmee. And I know a lot of people were ripping the heck out of Fight Night picks for taking Angela Hill to beat Lookboonmee. Because Angela Hill said before that fight, I am better at Muay Thai than Loma Lookboonmee, who grew up in a Muay Thai gym in Thailand. And Angela Hill beat her with MMA Muay Thai. That's the thing. Chrissy J. Hey, Jack. Who didn't used to watch that show? The Duck Dynasty. That's the name of that show. There we go. 1D saying Waterson. FM saying Waterson by submission. Angela is vulnerable to takedowns. I'd counter that. I know Angela Hill versus Marcos, but Brandon Marcos is a good wrestler. And Marcos is one of those ones, fights level or competition, loses, wins, loses, draws against Marina Rodriguez and others. But again, Angela Hill has good takedown defense. She really does. It's 72%? What is it? 72%. Michelle Waterson goes for more takedowns than Angela Hill does at 1.68 takedowns average per 15 minutes versus 0.47 for Angela Hill. So, if you're an Angela Hill fan, what's she going to do well? She's going to clinch. She's going to throw shots in tight. She's going to use her distance. Just my 2 cents saying Michelle's not a good striker. Now, just my 2 cents. I like you. I love your comments. I disagree with you there. The only reason why is Michelle Waterson's not a bad striker. And if she was at 105 pounds, listen, she would probably be a UFC champion at one point. Just my 2 cents says Angela will piece her up. Will and Hill, they rhyme. They're tough. Yes, I agree. I think Angela Hill's going to win this fight. And I agree with James Sturts, who says Matt needs to quit his day job because he works till 10 or 11 every single night. And we don't get to do this show together. And it's really difficult. Samuel, what does that have to do with fights? I get the LOL, but that doesn't have anything to do with fights. Yeah, I just see Angela Hill superior striking, really good kicking. She can get the low kick in tight. She's improved so much, Angela Hill has, since her first run in the UFC. And there's a reason why that record right there, it looks salty if you're just looking straight at it. It's just like Jaylen Turner. Jaylen Turner's 9-5. But he trains at Ruka Sport, which is an invite-only gym. You have Bisbing, Cyborg, RDA train there. There's a very select few that get to go there. And then again, like I said, Jaylen Turner, good shot at beating Brock Weaver. Angela Hill, salty record, but she has a good chance to get the win over Michelle Waterson here. If we look over at the odds, slight favorite for Angela Hill. Open as a -170. There was money that came in on Waterson all week. Angela Hill -126 average. Michelle Waterson +145 open. Now at a +103. So it's an interesting fight. Like I said, I'm going with Angela Hill. Hooked on kicks, saying, hope you're doing good tonight, Craig. I am. I hope I do. And then in terms of the fights, again, that I'm really like locked and loaded with, everybody wants the lock of the night. There's not a lot here. Listen, I'm going to be totally honest. Again, 16-1 in the last number of weeks before we rip back through the entire card and send everybody home and on their way happy. I think there's a lot of really good fights to see. I mean, Romanov and Martinez making their debuts. That's a lot of fun. I also see, who else is it here? RDJ Production, that cowboy tie. Gonna have to explain that one, dog. RDJ, I've explained it the entire show. It's because if you follow along with Fight Night Picks on Instagram, we post that picture of Aaron Rodgers every week in the Canadian tuxedo. If it's a good week, we put the song Denim on Denim. Maybe we can get Tebe on the show. I don't know. Does he watch MMA? Is he a Canadian MMA fan? Who knows? But that's the reason why. So, Devin Davis saying 0 confident plays, LOL. There's confidence for sure, but when you've got odds like you have here this week, it just doesn't make sense, right? Like, why would you go ahead and parlay 3 or 4 at -400 odds just because you did it? Because on average, I mean, you get what, 60% of the favorites win, so there's not a good shot there. So let's see here. Mr. Luxury hitting us back up with a super chat. Appreciate you. I mispronounced appreciate instead of appreciate. Thanks for the insight, Craig. Going to be a great night of fights. Let's get into it. Pip, pip, da doodly do. I mean, let's get into it. Anthony Gray saying Bobo tie. It's a bolo tie, but we're close. And Branch Above, thanks for the great show, Craig. So let's rip through these final picks. I will go through the Instagram picks because they probably fluctuated. I see a lot of people have actually followed along. Mazzo Kish over on Instagram. 74% going Mazzo. I'm going with the weird underdog pick here. Again, Aaron Welch saying not the best odds for betting tonight. Facts. I think so. So you can shout at me later on, but it is what it is. So I'm going with Kish here. Again, I like the lateral movement. I like the pressure. The tie clinch from Mazzo is great. The shots from distance are great. There's a lot of good things that she's good at. But again, I'm going with Kish. Then we have Barberena and Anthony Ivey. 91%. That was the wrong one. 74% going with Brian Barberena to get the win. I'm sticking it here with Barberena as well. Then we move on to Weaver and Turner over on Instagram. 81% going with Jaylen Turner. I'm also sticking with Jaylen Turner. Scott Soko saying, let's get into it. Is my KH? Hey, that was multiple fights ago. Get out of that, kid. Now we get into the next one. We got Romanov taking on Rocky Martinez. Both guys UFC debuts. 90% going with Romanov. I'm also sticking with Romanov. Then we get into the next one. Roberts and Kroom. 91% going with Roosevelt Roberts over Kevin Kroom. It should be a fun fight, but yeah, again, I've got Roberts there as well. Vela and Eubanks. It's a fun fight. 76% on Instagram going with Vela. Quarantillo Nelson, 91% going with Quarantillo. I'm also with Quarantillo. Bobby Green taking on Alon Patrick, 83% with Bobby Green. I have Bobby Green as well. Ed Herman taking on Mike Rodriguez, 51%, and it's close. I'll get you the vote total. 77 votes for Rodriguez to 72 for Herman. I have Ed Herman in this fight as a decent little underdog, around a plus 200. I think he's like plus 192, 193 average. Andrea Lee and Roxanne Modafferi in the rematch, 69% with Andrea Lee, 105 votes for Lee, 45 for Roxanne Modafferi. We look at the co-main event, Ottman Azaitar taking on Khama Worthy, 55% Worthy, 45% Azaitar, 84 votes for Worthy to 70 for Azaitar. I have Khama Worthy. And then the next fight, in our main event, Angela Hill taking on Michelle Waterson, 2/3 going with Angela Hill, 66% is the average. And if you look at it in terms of vote totals, 107 for Hill, 249 for Michelle Waterson. So to recap, and in totality, and the Canadian Tuxedo, the debut of the Canadian Tuxedo, rip through it one more time. So I've got Kish, Barberena, Turner, Romanov, Roberts, Avila, Quarantillo, Green, Herman, Lee, Worthy, and Hill. And listen, it should be a really good night of fights. We got about 10 minutes until the fights start. Art on the Goat says that shirt is fire. Maybe I can get it embroidered. If anybody knows any good embroiderers, check out Stardom Sports because they do embroidering. And I've got the link down below for those guys. They're looking to sell off some of their golf merch before the end of the year. I'm really looking forward to it. It's been an insane 2 weeks, and I appreciate everybody for tuning in and everybody that hit up the Super Chat. We're looking at doing some different things, Super Chat, maybe channel member-wise, and we're doing some more with the site as well. We didn't get an opportunity to put together our fantasy picks. It just didn't happen. Spud McKenzie saying I look like I work as bank teller in Montana. Kind of like, what was it, Longmire? Maybe. Michael Fletcher hitting us up. Deer Slayer Ski saying, Diaz Army, let's get into it. Ramen saying, you the man. What else? FM saying, best geek in the planet. Listen, I'm having a good time. And if this weekend's terrible for picks, I'm going to come back next week because it's been good lately and I've been having a lot of fun. And I appreciate everybody in the comments every week. So, to recap, there's going to be some new content on the Fight Night Picks site. We're working on more video content. The other thing I want to say, check out Revisionist MMA. Check it out. It's a good show. They talked about what if Brock Lesnar fought DC, UFC 200? It would have been cool. It would have been. Branch Above wants to see the studio, maybe next week. But again, you have 8 minutes until the fights. Grab a snack, maybe go to the bathroom, get right into that couch, and get ready for it. You also have Bellator tonight. So, with all that being said, and again, I appreciate everybody for tuning in and looking forward to another crazy week of fights. And as we always say, as Ponder Replay says, I've got Patchy Mix over at Juan Archuleta. Let's get into it.
It's time
For 15 minutes of non-stop MMA, tackling the biggest news in the sport. Head into the chat and let us know how you feel. Live from Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada. Here's your host, Craig Allen.